Good afternoon. Welcome to the 20th Annual General Meeting of the Travel Industry Council of Ontario. My name is Michael Levinson. I am a Minister appointee and the Chair of the TICO Board of Directors. We're pleased that you've chosen to join us this afternoon. The materials for this meeting, agenda, minutes from last AGM, TICO's 2022 annual report, and the 2022 business plan were made available on the webcast platform and TICO's website for review in advance of the meeting. TICO CEO and Registrar, Richard Smart, will be joining me in presenting today. Tracy McKiernan, Legal Counsel and Corporate Secretary, will act as Recording Secretary for the meeting. Christina Wilson, Stakeholder Relations Manager, will serve as moderator. We're pleased to welcome Reno Calandran, Deputy Minister of the newly renamed Ministry of Public and Business Service Delivery, and our colleagues in the ministry who are joining us virtually today. We really appreciate the support of the ministry team, especially during these challenging times. Next, I want to recognize my fellow board members who have dedicated their time and expertise to serve the organization over the past year. From the Association of Canadian Travel Agencies, Mike Foster, Rocky Racco. From the Canadian Association of Tour Operators, Nicole Bursey, Joanne Du. From the Ontario Motor Coach Association, Ted Goldenberg. The elected directors are Doug Ellison and Robert Townsend. The other ministerial appointees are Angela Blanis, Zaid Lama, and Scott Stewart. I'm also pleased to welcome TICO staff. On behalf of the board, I wish to thank you for the hard work you do every day to fill our important consumer protection mandate. We have representatives from the industry trade associations with us today. Welcome. Finally, to all the registrants and members of the public joining us, thank you for making the time to attend. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that TICO's office is located on the treaty lands and territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. The land that surrounds us is part of who we are and reflects our histories. Our registrants and stakeholders, located throughout the province of Ontario, are also on other Indigenous lands with applicable treaties or unceded territories. Today and every day, TICO honors all Indigenous peoples, their voices and culture as part of our commitment to a more diverse and inclusive workplace and society. I have a certificate of service of notice from the Corporate Secretary, indicating that notice of the meeting was duly given to members of the corporation in accordance with our bylaws. The quorum for the meeting is 20 members. Based on the number of logins, I can confirm that we have a quorum. I now declare the meeting properly constituted. Next, I'll take a few minutes to go over the rules of procedure and some aspects of the virtual platform that we're using today. People entitled to be present at the meeting are members, the officers and auditors of the corporation, and members of the public. On your screen, you'll see the main presentation. All attendees are muted to limit background noise. During the meeting, if you'd like to ask a question or make a comment, please type it in the question box on the right side of the screen and press submit. The moderator will address questions to the appropriate person. All questions are recorded. If we do not answer your question during the meeting, we can respond to you at a later date. The question box is intended to provide an opportunity for meaningful and productive discussion related to today's agenda, so defamatory or demeaning comments or discussion of specific complaints or investigations are not welcome. Please limit the use of the question box to comments and questions relevant to the meeting. If you require technical support during the meeting, please click on the technical support button on the top right and you can chat with a support specialist to assist you with your issue. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and may be posted to TICO's website. I will now discuss the voting procedure and process. At designated times during the meeting, voting members will be asked to move and second, as well as vote on motions presented. Each voting member is entitled to one vote, in person or by proxy, for each registration held on every question submitted. For example, if a member has a retail and wholesale registration, it will be counted as 2 votes. Branch offices do not receive a vote, only head offices. When we get to a vote, a pop-up will appear on your screen with a mover and a seconder button. Once the motion has been moved and seconded, we will open discussion on the motion. You can submit questions or comments in the question box on the right-hand side of your screen. Comments during the discussion period of a motion should be relevant to the motion. The moderator will address questions to the appropriate person. When discussion is closed and the chair calls for the vote, another pop-up will appear allowing you to cast your vote. You'll have the option to select your response. Once your selection is made, you'll see a confirmation at the bottom right of your screen confirming your vote has been received. A vote of the majority of those voting shall be required in order that a motion pass unless the law or bylaws require a greater number. In the case of equality of votes, the chair shall have the casting vote. Once voting is complete, the chair will share the results. The declaration of an outcome by the chair shall be recorded in the minutes and shall be conclusive evidence of the fact, numbers, percentages, abstentions, and the identity of those opposed may be, but do not need to be recorded. Let's start with a practice vote to ensure everyone is comfortable using the technology. Can I have a mover and a seconder for, do you drink coffee in the morning? Let's wait for people to put their votes in.
Has been moved and seconded.
Thank you, Chris. We'll now proceed with the vote. Okay,
The results are in. 82% said yes, 17% said no, 0% abstained.
Thank you. We'll now move to item number 3 on the agenda, the minutes from last year's general meeting. The minutes from the AGM held on June 29th, 2021 were made available on the webcast platform and TICO's website in advance of the meeting. Does anyone have any discussion points arising from the minutes? Please type any comments in the question box. Any questions or comments that aren't related to the AGM minutes will be addressed later in the meeting. We'll give people a moment to type any discussion points.
There are no questions about the minutes from the 2021 AGM.
Okay, thank you, Christina. We're very, very fortunate to have Deputy Minister Kalundran with us today. Reno Kalundran was appointed Deputy Minister of Government and Consumer Services in July 2021, which on Friday became the Ministry of Public and Business Service Delivery. Reno has over 32 years of Ontario public service experience in diverse policy, regulatory, licensing, enforcement, and program delivery environments across several ministries, including education, labor, training and skills development, and cabinet office. She was most recently the Associate Deputy Minister responsible for Service Ontario. We're grateful that Deputy Minister Kalundran has taken time from her busy schedule to join us today. I will now invite Deputy Minister to say a few words.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Michael, for that kind introduction. It's a great pleasure to be here. And also, I would say, having spent some time today with the new minister, Khalid Rashid, that he wanted to send along his greetings, and he's really looking forward to connecting with you, Michael, and the team. So I'm really pleased to join you virtually today for TICO's annual general meeting, and I wanted to start off by congratulating TICO on its 25th anniversary. I'm sure we can all agree that the travel services sector and TICO are very different today than they were 25 years ago. And I'm really proud to see the evolution of TICO since its inception and to see its continued commitment to advancing consumer protection. As you know, the Travel Industry Act 2002 and its regulation are intended to help protect consumers when booking vacations or other travel services from travel agents. Over the years, TICO has remained dedicated to its mission of a fair, safe, and informed marketplace as it relates to travel services in Ontario. And the ministry recognizes that Ontario's travel and tourism industry has undergone serious challenges and financial hardships as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. I really appreciate TICO's timely communication and support to registrants when it was most needed, and the integral role of TICO in assisting consumers who experience and continue to face the impacts of the pandemic. I'd like to thank TICO for its steady hand during such a time of unprecedented uncertainty. TICO's leaders and staff have enabled the organization to quickly pivot its operations during the pandemic, and I understand that the travel industry is slowly seeing positive signs of recovery, noting that the recovery period will likely be gradual and take some time. To respond to the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on travel agents and wholesalers and certain travelers, both temporary and permanent regulatory changes were made under the Travel Industry Act that came into effect both in March and December of 2020. Some of the temporary regulatory changes were extended in February 2022. In addition, the province is providing temporary funding to TICO for the 2022-23 fiscal year for the third year in a row. This temporary financial support allows TICO to continue its operations in support of consumer protection and enables it to waive registrant fees and compensation fund payments for a third year. Additionally, in late April, the then Minister of Government and Consumer Services and TICO executed an updated administrative agreement that enhances accountability, transparency, and oversight. The ministry would like to thank TICO for the valuable advice it provided to the ministry during these important developments, and I'm pleased with TICO's ongoing collaboration with the ministry to support these initiatives and to communicate changes to the sector. It'll be a busy year for TICO as the sector continues to face challenges and begins to recover. The ministry will continue to monitor the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on the travel industry and on travelers. We are incredibly appreciative of the professionalism and collaborative spirit that TICO has consistently demonstrated, and its achievements are a testament to the expertise and dedication of your board and TICO staff. Once again, congratulations, TICO, on reaching such an important milestone with your organization. We continue to wish you all the best and appreciate our wonderful relationship over the past 25 years. I thank you for inviting me here today, and I'm looking forward to coming back to explain some of the organizational changes at the ministry and to talk more about issues important to you and your constituents. With that, I'll turn it back to you, Michael.
Thank you, Deputy Minister Kalendran. We're very happy you could join us today and look forward to continuing our work with you moving forward. Next on our agenda is the annual report. Oh, thanks. Sorry. Next on our agenda are the annual reports from the chair and the CEO. As many of you know, I joined TICO board just over a year ago and recently completed my first full year as chair. I'm pleased to provide a report on several key areas. Just a few days ago, TICO marked its 25th anniversary. In June 1997, TICO officially opened its doors as the delegated administrative authority responsible for overseeing Ontario's travel sector. A lot has changed in 25 years, but TICO's commitment to its consumer protection mandate has remained steadfast. Over the past 25 years, TICO has fielded more than 115,000 consumer questions via calls, emails, and in early days, walk-ins, closed nearly 6,600 written complaints, and facilitated close to $5 million in restitution, paid out nearly $15 million from the compensation fund, which assisted 24,000 consumers, repatriated more than 4,200 consumers who were stranded in destination. Our compliance team conducted 46,000 bench reviews of registrants' financial statements with an additional 11,000 site visits. And the team has issued nearly 2,700 warnings to unregistered operators. Achievements like these illustrate how TICO has promoted a marketplace where consumers can feel confident purchasing from a TICO registered company. The organization has also been committed to being a modern and progressive regulator, one that fairly balances the needs of consumers and registered travel agencies and wholesalers with the ups and downs of the economy. While there have been several external factors that affected the travel industry over the past 25 years, none have been as profound as COVID-19. While the pandemic appears to be slowly receding in severity, it's certainly not over. The travel industry continues to feel the effects both locally and on a global scale. Many travel and public health restrictions have been eased over the past few months, but barriers still remain, and they continue to be a challenge for consumers and industry alike. As we begin to recover from one global crisis, we need to consider today's environment of high inflation, rising fuel costs, war, and other uncertainties that impact our industry and society more broadly. The growing prospect of a global recession is an emerging challenge that may have profound impact on travel. The travel sector was one of the first to be impacted by COVID-19 and will be one of the last to recover. The recovery process has only just begun. For TICO's board of directors, our key roles is to provide risk oversight for the organization. This role is important during good times and critical during a crisis. This year, we received TICO's risk framework and ensured risk mitigation was reflected in the organization's 3-year business plan. A crucial consideration has and continues to be the financial well-being of Ontario's travel agencies and wholesalers. A line that has been used a number of times throughout the industry is that reopening does not mean recovery. Acknowledging the profound financial strain and hardship on TICO registrants, we worked closely with the Ontario government, who provided a 3rd year of funding to TICO, which allowed for continued fee waivers to registrants. Further burden reduction was offered by way of regulatory extensions to support registrants during this initial recovery period. As we progress through the recovery process, it will be important for TICO to continue to engage its stakeholders to understand the challenges and opportunities facing the industry. At last year's AGM, I talked about a newly formed Consumer Industry Advisory Committee, or CIAC for short. I'm pleased to report that CIAC met 3 times over the past year, chaired by Elliot Finkelman, a registrant from the Ottawa area. This committee forms a key part of our information sharing to help ensure the board is informed and can be effective in its governance role. The board is also committed to improving governance oversight. We continue to evaluate our board and committee meetings, implementing recommendations formulated through the continuous feedback mechanism. In closing, I'd like to thank you in closing, I would like to extend a thank you to TICO staff who are exceptionally dedicated to furthering consumer protection, while also being supportive of the registrant community. I'd also like to thank my fellow directors for their guidance, camaraderie, and professionalism as I settled into the role of chair. Being a TICO director is an important responsibility and requires dedication and commitment. Professionally, it is also a forward-looking environment where ideas and experience are welcome and where we can have some fun along the way. I encourage everyone to consider an opportunity to serve. Much like TICO's first 25 years saw significant growth and innovation within the industry, I hope the next 25 years will bring renewed confidence and prosperity. While the challenges of the last 2 years can't be overstated, we know that the future is bright because the dedication and persistence of everyone who works in the industry. I'm confident that TICO will continue to be a progressive regulator, supporting a trusted marketplace where consumers are confident in purchasing travel from registered professionals. I'd like to thank you all for attending today's session. I do hope that this year will bring brighter days and more opportunities for all of us to connect in person. I'll now ask Richard Smart, President and CEO, to report on the activities of TICO since last AGM and provide a brief review of financial statements. There will be an opportunity to ask questions toward the end of the meeting during other business. I encourage you to hold any questions regarding the chair and CEO reports until that time.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and a warm welcome to TICO's virtual annual general meeting. It's our 2nd year offering our AGM in this fully virtual format and the first using this new digital platform. While I do miss the face-to-face interaction we had in the pre-COVID days, I appreciate the convenience and access that this format provides. And it allows registrants and stakeholders from every corner of the province to have the same opportunity to connect and engage with us. And I'd like to personally thank Deputy Minister Renu Kulindran for being here today and for your remarks just a few minutes ago. The commitment, dedication, and continued support by you and the rest of the ministry liaison team are truly greatly appreciated. And I'd like to extend a warm welcome to everyone who has joined us here today. As Michael said, a lot has happened in the world since we last met a year ago. The COVID-19 pandemic has continued to challenge the economy, our healthcare system, the travel industry, and society as a whole. This time last year, there was great optimism that recovery would soon be underway as the vaccine rollout was quickly gaining momentum. But the emergence of new variants threw a curveball to those recovery plans, and our economy continued to stop and start. New uncertainties in the global marketplace surfaced. Despite these challenges and hardships, the travel industry continued to show its resilience, and slowly consumer confidence increased. And after more than 2 years, we're seeing pent-up demand being unleashed as Ontarians are eager to visit family and friends, take long-awaited vacations, and conduct those in-person business meetings near and afar. While things are certainly looking brighter than they did even 6 months ago, the road to recovery is certainly not linear. We know that the opening of the economy here and abroad does not mean travel is back to normal. We still have a long way to go. While there are challenges and uncertainties to work through, Ontario's travel industry is resilient, and I believe that with time, business will continue to rebound and regain its momentum. As our chair, Michael, mentioned in his report, this year marks TICO's 25th anniversary. The travel industry has changed significantly over the past 25 years. Technology is changing, business models are changing, and consumer preferences are changing. It only makes sense that TICO continues to evolve too. We've worked with industry and with government over the years with a goal of achieving a regulatory framework that is both modern and progressive. There is more work to be done, and we know that industry is concerned about what the future looks like. The new normal is clearly still developing. While the entire travel ecosystem is shifting and reinventing itself, an expectation for a fair and balanced consumer protection framework remains vital. I believe TICO's mandate is even more important in this emerging new normal, and we remain committed to our vision and mission, evolving as needed to be that progressive regulator of the future. The ever-changing landscape of the travel industry over the past 2 years has meant that both consumers and registrants have needed support more than ever before. In working with both groups, our aim has always been and continues to be to find fair solutions so that consumers remain confident purchasing their travel from Ontario registered businesses. We believe that a regulated travel marketplace with sound consumer protection is good for consumers and good for business. Consumer protection is best achieved in the context of a vibrant marketplace, and that's why TICO has continued to work collaboratively with government on initiatives that support the viability of the sector. For a third year, and for the full duration of the pandemic, TICO has received funding from the Ontario government. This has allowed us to waive registration fees and compensation fund contributions until March 31st of next year. While there are certainly other financial pressures facing travel agencies and tour operators, we've heard from industry that these waivers are making a meaningful difference. I'll touch more on this soon, but the vast majority of consumers are seeing the importance and the continued value of booking with regulated travel agencies and websites. Consumer protection is top of mind as the travel environment continues to see constant change, with restrictions and requirements both here and abroad. And we at TICO believe that industry remains the best ambassadors to communicate that consumer protection message to travelers. We will continue to offer our support to help spread this important message. Supporting Ontario travel consumers has always been central to TICO's reason for being. Since the start of the pandemic, TICO received an unprecedented number of calls and emails for consumers who had their travel bookings adversely impacted by the COVID-19 global pandemic. And over the past year, we've continued to receive elevated levels of consumer inquiries and complaints, though the numbers are beginning to stabilize. The most common reason that consumers contact us included issues around vouchers expiring, price increases, customer service concerns, and undisclosed fees. Our approach is always to work with the consumer and the registrant involved to open a line of dialogue to find an equitable solution within the regulatory framework. The financial hardships on registrants continued to mount this past year, and on March 31st, 2022, there were a total of 2,035 TICO registrants, compared to 2,095 the year before, representing a 3% decrease. We experienced 265 voluntary terminations throughout the year, which is consistent with 263 terminations the year before. It's always disheartening when we see a business close its doors, whether it's due to the pandemic or otherwise. We did also register 70 new entrants into the travel marketplace. Some of these businesses that closed early in the pandemic have decided to reopen their doors. And in 2021, we made it easier for past registrants to reapply, removing certain requirements and expenses. Meanwhile, other new registrants are entirely new to the industry and have a novel and innovative ideas for providing services to Ontario consumers. In many of our discussions with industry, the topic of labor shortages comes up again and again as a key challenge at this time. We saw nearly 4,700 TICO certification exams written over the past year, which is more than double the number from the prior year and close to pre-pandemic levels. We hope that the pipeline of new individuals choosing a career in travel sales will continue to expand as the industry sees further recovery. On the topic of education, we launched a new, more friendly digital flipbook study manual for the travel counselor and supervisor manager certifications. The new manual has updated content to reflect changes in legislation, as well as a more modern appearance and user experience. TICO exams were also updated for various regulatory changes and to reflect the revised content in the study manuals. Continuing to enhance the education program remains a key priority for TICO. And similarly, we'll be promoting the TICO certification program to help attract new talent into the sector. You may recall during last year's AGM, I spoke about our inaugural values survey with both consumers and registrants. These were detailed and comprehensive surveys where respondents were asked to score TICO on several aspects of our overall value proposition. Earlier this year, we ran many versions of those surveys to gauge how perceptions around value had trended year over year. The consumer survey found that 75% of respondents thought TICO's services were valuable as a travel consumer, up from 73% the year before. The survey also found that more than 4 in 5 respondents feel it is important that the travel agency they are booking through is regulated. And in addition to the TICO website and TICO's advertising, consumers believe their travel agency should be a source of information for learning about the consumer protections available. On the registrant side, we saw some significant gains over the inaugural survey. In particular, we saw about an 11% increase in confidence as TICO as a regulator. The score was 73%, up 62% from the year before. We also saw perceived value of TICO increase to 63% this year, up from 54% the year before. Registrants were asked to evaluate TICO on certain attributes, and we saw double-digit growth in areas including TICO is interested in the feedback of registrants, TICO understands registrant needs, and TICO is effective at finding solutions for consumers. And as an organization, we'll always strive to do better, and the results from these surveys will continue to assist us enhancing our services as we deliver on our mandate. One of the most important aspects of this mandate is to ensure Ontarians are informed about the consumer protections available when they book with the TICO registered travel agency or website. As our campaign is largely digital, we've been able to adjust our messaging and approach on a moment's notice to reflect the realities of the public health and travel environment at the time. Our aim is to provide travel consumers with credible, up-to-date information through our social media accounts, blog, and website. In fiscal 21-22, our consumer protection message was seen by over 11 million Ontarians. Our strong engagement numbers indicate that the information we published was timely and of interest to consumers, prompting them to like, share, comment, or click for more information. We continued using the familiar asterisk character, which represents risk and understanding that fine print. We launched 2 updated mass market videos that speak to not missing any important details when traveling in the new normal. The videos ran as ads on YouTube and were seen nearly 65,000 times. Coupled with our ongoing promotion of videos produced in the prior year, TICO's videos were seen a total of 250,000 times. In addition to our digital campaign, TICO was featured in 42 consumer news articles and broadcasts during the year with relevant information and tips for Ontario travelers. And in recent months, consumer confidence has increased and the messaging in our campaign aims to further help consumers feel informed and empowered when making their travel decisions. Our top key message is always to share the benefits of booking with a TICO registered travel agency or website. For the third year in a row, TICO operated in a zero revenue environment. Thanks to the financial support from the Ontario government, TICO was able to continue operating on its mandate of consumer protection while also passing along financial support to registrants. Over the past year, we saw an increase in compensation fund claims. The total amount paid out from the fund was nearly $429,000. This is the highest level that we've seen in 8 years, but lower than actuarial expectations. The prolonged nature of the pandemic has undoubtedly been the driver behind this increase in consumer claims. And in total, the compensation fund assisted 376 consumers last year. The fund balance remains at just under $23.5 million for future consumer claims. As an organization, we remain focused on prudent expense management and operated below budget for the year. In total, we generated a net deficit of $1.2 million, ahead of budget expectations, but nevertheless an unsustainable deficit. Last fall, we engaged in a fee review and consultation with industry and stakeholders. We proposed a future funding model and heard you loud and clear that it wasn't the right approach. Instead, a more comprehensive, risk-based funding framework for the future needs to be considered. We now need to be mindful of emerging economic challenges. Pent-up demand needs to be carefully considered in light of macroeconomic trends. High inflation, increasing interest rates, labor shortages, and declining consumer confidence have now fueled the prospects of a future recession. This will bear careful monitoring. We remain committed to further engaging with industry on this topic while working to address this funding challenge. Over the past couple of years, the challenges around diversity, equity, and inclusion have come to the forefront of society. And it's something that TICO is committed to in advancing within our own organization as well. About a year ago, we added openness as a new corporate value. And as an organization, we've always endeavored to be respectful and inclusive as we interact with diverse audiences of consumers, registrants, and other stakeholders. And over the past year, we have dedicated additional attention, including staff training, to do our part to end systemic racism of marginalized communities. Last July, TICO signed the Black North Initiative Pledge, and we committed to making meaningful differences in the way we do business to enhance diversity, equity, and inclusion. This will be an ongoing journey as we continue to hear different perspectives and educate ourselves on the experiences of others. As we look at the rest of 2022 and beyond, we have a new 3-year business plan that will guide our priorities and activities. If you haven't had a chance to do so yet, I encourage you to download a copy of it from this portal or on the TICO website. As we've seen over the past 2.5 years, it's difficult to predict where the pandemic will lead us next or how other global events will shape the trajectory of the recovery process. I can say that we're committed to a fair funding model that reflects the principles of cost recovery, delivers value to stakeholders, and that is consistent with the laws of Ontario. We will continue to work with the Ministry of Public and Business Service Delivery to be a progressive and modern regulator, one that balances the needs of consumers and industry while considering the realities of the current travel marketplace. We will continue to enhance consumer and registrant awareness, improve on our educational platform for new talent entering the industry, and to support consumers in their quest to make fully informed travel purchase decisions. We will continue our unwavering focus on prudent financial stewardship, striving to enhance the value of services we provide to consumers and to registrants. And as I've mentioned several times here today, I truly believe the resiliency and dedication by the industry throughout the pandemic has been nothing short of remarkable. You've continued to support your clients, showcasing why expert help is so valuable, especially during these challenging times. I sincerely hope that when we meet again next year, if not sooner, we'll have a new narrative to share about how far the industry has come. So in closing, I would like to thank the Board of Directors for their ongoing support, guidance, and collaborative spirit as we navigated another challenging year. I also thank and appreciate the strong and collaborative relationship my team enjoys with the Ministry of Public and Business Service Delivery. I'd also like to extend my gratitude to the entire team at TICO. We often say that our team is small but mighty, and that's never been as apparent as over the past 2 years. And finally, I'd like to extend a thank you to all of you who took the time out of your busy day to join our AGM. Having a chance to listen to one another and stay informed about what's happening in the industry is an important way of engaging in the regulatory process. Now, let's move on to the next agenda item. An audit of TICO's financial statements was conducted. The auditor's report is included with the financial statements in the 2022 annual report. Management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements in accordance with Canadian accounting standards for not-for-profit organizations. The auditor's responsibility is to express an opinion on the financial statements based on their audit. It is the auditor's opinion that the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of TICO as of March 31st, 2022, and its financial performance and its cash flows for the year ended in accordance with Canadian accounting standards for not-for-profit organizations. TICO's financial statements can be found beginning on page 42 of the annual report. At this time, I'd like to ask, are there any questions on the financial statements? And if so, please type your questions into the question box.
So we do have some questions coming in, but not related to the financial statements. So we will get to those questions during the other business portion of the meeting, but there are no questions at this time related to this section.
Okay, thank you, Christina.
Thank you, Richard. I would now like to introduce you to Rob Claus of BDO Canada LLP. Hello, Rob.
Hello, Michael and everyone here.
Does anyone want the auditor to read his report, or can I have a motion to dispense with reading of the auditor's report? Is the motion up for dispensing the readers? Can I get a mover and a seconder for the motion?
And by, it's been moved and seconded. It has been moved by Elliot Finkelman, seconded by Scott Stewart.
Thank you, Elliot and Scott. Are there any questions for the auditor on the financial statements before we proceed with the vote on the motion? Please type your questions in the question box.
There are no questions related to this motion.
Okay, the discussion period is now closed. We'll now proceed with the vote on the motion.
The results are in. 92% said yes, 4% said no, 4% abstained.
Okay, the motion is carried. The next item of business is the appointment of auditors for the next year. The TICO Board of Directors is recommending BDO Canada LLP as TICO's auditors for 2022-2023. BDO have been TICO's auditors since the 2016-17 fiscal year. They have developed good knowledge of TICO and the work conducted is efficient. In the board's view, continuity is beneficial during a period of instability. I would now like to read the second motion. Motion to retain BDO Canada LLP as auditors and authorizing the board of directors to fix the auditor's remuneration. Can I get a mover and a seconder for the motion?
It's been moved by Nicole Bursey, seconded by Robert Townsend.
Thank you, Nicole and Robert. Discussion on the motion is now open. Are there any questions about the appointment of BDO Canada LLP as auditors before we proceed to a vote? Please type your comments or questions in the question box. We'll wait a minute to give members an opportunity to type any comments or questions.
There are no questions or comments related to this motion.
Okay, thank you, Christina. Discussion period is closed. We'll now proceed with a vote on the motion. We'll wait a minute to give members the opportunity to cast their votes.
Results are in. 96% said yes, 2% said no, 2% abstained.
Okay, the motion is carried. The next item on the agenda is the announcement of the results of the election and the composition of the new TICO board. By way of background, the board consists of 11 individuals, 2 named by the Association of Canadian Travel Agencies, ACTA, 2 named by the Canadian Association of Tour Operators, CATO, and 1 named by the Ontario Motor Coach Association, OMCA. 4 appointed by the Minister of Public and Business Service Delivery, and 2 elected members from the registrants. The 2 elected members on the board this year were Doug Ellison and Robert Townsend. As Doug Ellison's term is completed, there is 1 elected retail or wholesale position open on the TICO Board of Directors. The position is for a 2-year term. TICO sought nominations for the open position. Only 1 eligible nomination was received. As a result, the successful candidate by acclamation is Doug Ellison. Prior to opening Ellison Travel and Tours in 1980, Doug Ellison spent 14 years in education organizing school trips. In its 42 years of business, Ellison Travel has grown to more than 90 people in 7 locations. Customized planning for private groups is Ellison Travel's specialty. Congratulations, Doug. I will now announce the new TICO board for 2022-2023. The 2 directors named by ACTA are Mike Foster and Monica Johnston. The 2 directors named by CATO are Nicole Bursey and Joanne Du. The director named for OMCA is Ted Goldenberg. The 2 elected directors are Doug Ellison and Robert Townsend. The individuals appointed by the Minister of Public and Business Service Delivery are Angela Balanis, Zaid Lama, Michael Levinson, and Scott Stewart. On behalf of the board management, I'd like to welcome the new ACTA appointee and welcome Doug Ellison back. We look forward to working with you over the next year. Now I'd like to thank the following directors who retired from the board over the last year. Liana Villela. Liana served on the board as a ministerial appointee from June 2019 to December 2021. She recently participated in the Audit, Technology and Risk Management Committee and the Regulatory and Business Strategy Committee. She also served as the board observer on the Consumer Industry Advisory Committee. Rocky Rackow. Rocky was on the board from October 2020 to June 2022. He was an appointee of the Association of Canadian Travel Agencies. He participated in the Audit, Technology, and Risk Management Committee and the Regulatory and Business Strategy Committee. Thank you, Leanne and Rocky, for your commitment and dedication to advancing TICO's consumer protection mandate. Now we're on to other business. Does anyone have any general questions related to TICO matters or regarding TICO's annual report or business plan that they'd like to address? Our moderator is standing by to relay your questions to the presenters for response. And if we're not able to answer all the questions received during today's meeting, we'll provide written responses following the meeting.
We do have a question from Brett Walker of Colette. Brett asks, in looking at TICO's 2022 business plan and its strategic priorities, can you comment on who will complete the review of the compensation fund? Will that same party also conduct consultations with stakeholders?
Okay, thank you, Christina. And thank you, Brett, for the question. As a matter of fact, just this past week, TICO has issued an RFP on the Government Ontario's e-procurement system. For an RFP we've issued to seek organizations to bid on the role of doing the consultation for not just the compensation fund, but for our whole entire funding framework. And so that's going to go through a process of review and engagement. So the exact organization or people doing that review is unknown at this time, but it's something in process. And with the second half of the question, sorry, Christina, was
the question asked, will that same party also conduct consultations with stakeholders?
And the answer is yes, that is included as part of the RFP, that there will be a consultation process with stakeholders. Any other questions?
We have an additional question from Edward Collis of Unique World Travel Inc. And Edward asks, what were the fees of the auditors?
Okay, I'm going to hand that question over to Richard.
Thank you, Edward, for the question. Just before I answer that one, I just wanted to add to Michael's comments, and Brett, I appreciate the question around the compensation fund. I mentioned in my comments that last year we conducted a fee consultation around some of the other regulatory services exclusive of the compensation fund, and we heard loud and clear that that was not an approach that served the industry well. And we indicated at that time that we would revisit that sometime the following year, which is now. So Michael is absolutely correct. We've engaged in an RFP process to find an expert party to assist us. But let's be very clear. Management is the one that's conducting the review, and we're using all the resources at our disposal to look at all options available to us. It's also important to point out that in our administrative agreement, there is a very well-defined process that needs to be followed for any sort of fee review or look at the compensation fund or any of our other regulatory services. And so the review that we're going to undertake this year will be done in a collaborative way, working with our ministry colleagues, respecting the administrative agreement that we have in place, using as much resources at our disposal. And our plan is to engage and consult with stakeholders, including registrants, through that process. So that's going to unfold over the next number of months. And as I shared with you before, Brett, our goal is to look at all options available in coming up with a funding framework and compensation fund framework, that makes sense for the future. So hopefully that additional information is helpful. To answer Edward's question around auditor fees, in our financial statements, we don't disclose the audit fees by themselves. They're part of the professional services line in the statement of operations. But I can tell you that the approximate amount of the audit fees before taxes was in the range of $25,000 for the most recent completed fiscal year. So hopefully that answers your question, Edward. There is Christina, do you want to read out? I believe there's another question that's come in.
There is another question that has come in, and it is from Belinda Stronson, who is a public member, not a registrant, who is asking, according to Ontario's Sunshine List, Mr. Smart's salary increased from 2020 to 2021. And Belinda is asking if this is prudent expense management during a pandemic.
Yeah, that's probably better for Michael as a chair to answer.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Belinda, for the question. First, I want to go back and say that at the beginning of the pandemic, the board of directors, in consultation with management team, made a decision to actually roll back or reduce the salaries of everyone at TICO for a period of time in reaction and in support of the pain that the industry was going through. Then we also have at TICO a very detailed compensation policy that pinpoints TICO that we're going to be in the 50th percentile of the salary ranges for the respective positions. We did a freeze for close to 2 years of salaries. And then this year, when we were reviewing the salaries, we decided to give a very modest increase to all staff. And that included the CEO salary. So I hope that answers your question. And is it prudent? Well, you know, when you want to retain good quality people, and you have to address there is an increase in cost of living, that we felt, and the board, I should say, felt that it was prudent to make that decision. Thank you.
Those are all of the questions that we've received today. Thank you, everybody who submitted a question.
Okay, well, thank you all for your questions. Please remember that TICO staff are available to answer your questions throughout the year. Stakeholders are welcome to send comments and queries to TICO, and they will be directed to the appropriate person for response. That concludes today's meeting today. Thank you for spending this time with us. A recording will be made available on TICO's website in the next few weeks. Thank you for attending TICO's 25th anniversary general meeting. This meeting is adjourned. Have a nice evening. Thank you.